They were soulmates, bound together for a lifetime.
I catch him before he fall, he catch me before I fall.
You never seen two people more in love.
Until a hail of gunfire rained down on their storybook romance.
I need you guys to stage for Holly Road in Palm Beach County. It's in reference to a female that got shot. That's all I have so far.
Why were these people shot? How many shooters were there? Nobody knew.
The race to unravel this mystery will plunge investigators deep inside a bizarre world of sexual fetish, where carnal pleasure reigns supreme, and nearly everyone has a motive for murder.
He could have a buffet of women if he wanted.
But he wasn't the only one who was getting it all the time.
There was a lot of threat to the effect of, I'm gonna get you.
It just caused her to just lose her mind.
That's when hell just like broke loose.
December 23rd, 2013. Christmas is right around the corner, but it's a balmy night in West Palm Beach, Florida.
People were getting into the holiday spirit early. So for a Monday night, this town was hopping. It was about an hour before closing time, but there were definitely still people out and about.
But at 2 a.m., while most partygoers are winding down their evening, one woman has found herself in the fight of her life.
We gotta get you to a hospital.
Antoinette Jones and her boyfriend, Monroe Finley, apparently got caught up in a hail of gunfire, and it looks bad. There's blood all over the car, and it looks like he's been shot multiple times.
Oh my God, baby, wake up! Wake up!
The whole ride there, he wasn't responding to me. I don't even remember how to get in there. I was just trying to get to the closest hospital that I knew of.
Oh my God, somebody help me! Help me, my boyfriend, he's been shot! Help me, somebody! Help me!
And I ran in the emergency room to get help.
Somebody help me! My boyfriend has been shot! My boyfriend...
She was able to get out that the shooting happened behind a restaurant a few miles away, but then she realized something wasn't right.
I felt something warm, coming from my side. And that's when I touched myself and I looked. I was shot too.
Antoinette was so concerned about Monroe that she didn't even realize that she had been shot in the stomach herself.
Once I felt that burning sensation, it was hard for me to breathe. And once I seen blood, it just collapsed.
Ma'am, we need to get her into surgery now. Come on.
Born in 1982, Antoinette Jones grew up in a tough West Palm Beach neighborhood.
Growing up, it was kind of rough. In the area that I'm from, you have a lot of young kids starting drugs early. You have a lot of young kids around here killing.
For Antoinette, the guiding hand of her loving family kept her on the straight and narrow.
My mother always told me, it's like, no matter what you see out there in the world, it's all about what you want for yourself.
A lot of girls in the neighborhood got into trouble with boys at a young age, but not Antoinette. Her mother worked on keeping her self-esteem high, and dating was frowned upon.
And so, it wasn't until high school that she got her first taste of love.
My first boyfriend, he was a nice young man. He was older than me. And he opened my eyes to a certain thing.
But under the strict watch of Antoinette's family, keeping that flame alive wasn't easy.
I had to meet him outside the gate, or meet him across the street from the house.
After 4 years of these secret get-togethers, Antoinette's boyfriend decided to end the relationship.
Eventually, he found a young lady that had her own place, a little older than me and, a little more grounded than me.
But Antoinette refused to dwell on the breakup.
I actually focused on my goals in life, on what I wanted to do, what I needed to do as a woman. My first job, it was helping the elderly.
So how have you been, Miss Dorothy?
Well, I'm marvelous. How are you?
Good.
By age 22, Antoinette had secured a position at a local elder care facility, and saved up enough money to move out of her parents' home.
I love helping the elderly because somewhere down the line, they're gonna be us one day. That's where my heart is.
Out on her own with a successful career, all that was missing from Antoinette's life was romance. Little did she know, she was about to meet the man of her dreams.
One night, my mom had a party, and this young man came behind me, and he was like, excuse me.
How you doing? My name is Monroe.
I'm Antoinette.
For Antoinette, it was love at first sight.
Lord Jesus, he was a healthy young man with swag.
Antoinette was also impressed because he was 34, a little bit older than her and more experienced.
Now, your mama told me she had a beautiful daughter, but she didn't say you look like that. Damn.
He just say all the right things. And once you find a person that just say all the right things, you can't do nothing.
From that moment forward, Antoinette and Monroe couldn't get enough of each other.
There was a tremendous physical chemistry between them.
Neither Antoinette nor Monroe were shy when it came to talking about sex and how much they enjoyed that part of each other.
But it didn't take long for the couple to realize they both wanted more from the relationship than just good sex.
He wasn't just my lover, that was my friend, you know, and sometimes it has to be deeper than that.
And like Antoinette, Monroe believed in the value of hard work. He put 110% into everything he did.
He worked as a barber, and he would cut the hair of a lot of the people in the neighborhood. He was also the type that would come to his clients.
4 years into their relationship, the couple was more in love than ever and looking forward to a bright future.
Our goals was to get a house, me continue to go to school, nursery school. His goal was to go to electric school. We always encourage each other to want more and do more.
Together, this loving couple seemed unstoppable. But now, Antoinette Jones has been rushed into surgery, and Monroe Finley's injuries appear to be life-threatening.
The doctors realized that he's been shot in the back of the head.
What could have sparked such a brutal attack? Before detectives can unlock this mystery, they'll have to wade through carnage that's far more gruesome than anything anyone could have imagined.
It's very extreme. It was basically like, you're crazy.
Antoinette Jones and Monroe Finley shared the perfect love story.
What he can't do, I do. And what I can't do, he do. So it's like we was a team.
But in the wee hours of the morning on December 23, 2013, a hail of gunfire blew their world apart.
Oh my God!
Antoinette Jones and Monroe Finley were both victims of a brutal shooting. Antoinette managed to get them both to the hospital. She drove them there. She was in surgery with a gunshot wound to the abdomen.
But while Antoinette fights for her life, sadly, doctors are unable to save Monroe Finley. He has a gunshot wound to the head and is pronounced dead.
With Monroe dead and Antoinette fighting for her life, the couple's friends and family begin to gather at the hospital.
We're looking for the family of Monroe Finley.
Monroe Finley has a twin sister and his mother also. They were there. They were devastated.
Given the family's highly emotional state, detectives decide not to question anyone right away. Instead, they meet with the medical examiner to see what evidence might still be on Monroe's body.
They recover a cell phone, but more interestingly, they find a gun in one of Finley's pockets.
Now police have to consider whether Finley might not just be a victim, but a perpetrator.
Before detectives have the chance to dig deeper, a 911 call comes in over dispatch. There's been another shooting in the same vicinity where Antoinette and Monroe were attacked less than an hour earlier.
Yeah, who got shot?
Lady.
Okay, is she bleeding?
Yeah, she's bleeding.
Police immediately report to 2800 Military Trail, where they're confronted by a grisly sight.
They find a woman with blood dripping down her face. Her jaw had essentially been shot off. She'd also been shot in the shoulder as well.
Ma'am, help's on the way. Just try to breathe.
One of the officers who arrived described it just being a very bloody scene. She can't really speak because she's been shot through the face, and she wasn't able to give the officer that arrived on the scene her full name.
Can you tell me what happened?
One of the officers gave her some paper and something to write with to have her to try to write what happened, and all she could write were the words, "Roe."
After that, she was rushed to the hospital for treatment.
But who was this mysterious Roe mentioned in the injured woman's note?
The shooting on Antoinette Jones and Monroe Finley happened in the same area. So when detectives arrive on the scene, they have already made the connection between them, and they were wondering if Roe could be Monroe.
With one man dead and two women holding on for dear life, detectives are hoping the physical evidence will explain any link between the two incidents.
Officer. What have you guys found so far?
Okay, we found shell casings.
Investigators found casings, one from a .40 caliber. They also found one from a .45 caliber as well.
While police are trying to track down any firearms that might have been left at the scene, they find a woman's sandal, a trail of blood, and a black and silver handgun.
As they did a second sweep of the area, they also found a Glock semi-automatic. So now, detectives have a gun on Finley, plus two more firearms, and it looks to them like there might be three shooters in this case.
As CSIs continue to process the scene, they send the two firearms off to the crime lab for fingerprints testing. In the meantime, detectives reach out to two potential witnesses who've recently arrived on site.
In the vicinity, detectives located Sheila Fulton and Frank Parker.
All right, if I could have you come over here and just talk with me for a minute.
Sheila Fulton reveals that she's a good friend of the woman who was shot in the face and identifies her as Kizzy Stiles.
Kizzy Stiles was in her mid-30s. She was a mother of 5 children.
Sheila considered Kizzy like a sister, so Sheila was really emotional about the whole incident.
They said that you knew one of the victims?
Yes, me and her were like this.
Fulton says that she was with Kizzy for most of the night, but later in the evening, she saw Kizzy walk away with a black male towards the parking lot of a local restaurant.
According to Sheila Fulton, after that, Kizzy went MIA for hours. But when Sheila and Frank heard about the shooting, they raced back to where they'd last seen her.
Well, Sheila was really shocked that something like this had happened to Kizzy.
Sheila's friend, Frank Parker, corroborates her statement. But it's obvious to detectives that something's not quite right.
You seem a little bit nervous. Sure.
All right, sir, you appear to be under the influence of some sort of intoxicant. Go ahead and put your hands on your head for me.
I don't have anything, sir.
You don't have anything? I have something here that appears to be cocaine in the front pocket.
Detectives locate cocaine on Mr. Parker and place him under arrest.
Sir, you're under arrest for possession of a narcotic, okay?
Detectives call in a routine background check on Monroe Finley and get some interesting results.
His record went back to 1997. He'd been in and out of prison. It was pretty bad. He had a history of drug possession and sales.
Detectives now wonder if these two shootings could both be drug-related.
So it had a lot of the markers of what appeared to be a drug deal gone wrong. The lateness of the hour, the back parking lot meeting spot, and what was the appearance of multiple shooters.
And with Frank Parker locked up on possession charges, authorities suspect he may have instigated the attack on Monroe and Antoinette.
They booked him down at the station, and at that point, he was questioned by detectives.
What was your involvement with the shooting last night?
Wait a minute, man. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I swear, you can ask Sheila, she was there.
Parker willingly agrees to take a DNA test to clear himself. He also swears that Sheila Fulton can vouch for him because they were together the night of the shooting.
Yes.
The alibi checks out. At this point, detectives have no reason to look at him as a suspect anymore.
Frank claims he and Sheila were down the street in a local park at the time of the attack on Monroe and Antoinette, a story Sheila Fulton ultimately corroborates. The next day, investigators check on the status of the two surviving shooting victims, Antoinette Jones and Kizzy Stiles.
Kizzy is in a medically induced coma and Antoinette is in the ICU.
At this point, detectives don't know if either woman are going to make it, and if they do, it could be a long road to recovery. Who knows when detectives are going to be able to speak with them?
But just when the investigation seems to be at a standstill, detectives discover that Monroe Finley had a surprising enemy, one with an intensely personal reason to want to put him in the grave.
When you beat up on someone's kin, you're playing with fire.
Antoinette Jones felt blessed to have found the love of her life, Monroe Finley, until a shooting in West Palm Beach, Florida, tore their lives asunder.
Antoinette Jones, she was shot in the stomach. She was rushed into the hospital into surgery. Now, as for Monroe Finley, he was DOA. He was dead on arrival.
Now, detectives have identified a third shooting victim, Kizzy Stiles, and they suspect that the motive for the attack is a drug deal gone bad.
Detectives learned that Monroe Finley had a criminal past that included drug sales. Also, drugs were found on a witness at the scene.
When the toxicology report comes back on December 24th, it seems to support this theory.
Monroe Finley, he had Molly in his system. Molly is a form of ecstasy.
Detectives contact Monroe Finley's family to see what they know about his past drug use or his criminal history. His family insists that Monroe had left all that behind.
They admit he occasionally used drugs recreationally, but otherwise, Antoinette Jones had helped him turn his life around.
He went to work every day, he cut hair. He was something of a mentor to the kids in the neighborhood.
But if Monroe's death isn't drug-related, then what's the motive? Hoping to gain insight into Finley's final hours, investigators begin combing through his cell phone.
It doesn't take too long before they locate a threatening text that was sent a few days before the murder, and this obviously was a major red flag.
It was laced with cuss words and basically said, "Don't you dare put your hands on my little sister again, or I'm coming for you."
Police discovered that the phone number belongs to Kizzy Stiles' brother, Kenny Foster.
Judging from the context of the messages, not only did Kizzy Stiles and Monroe Finley know one another, Kizzy's brother Kenny believes Monroe had been beating up on her.
Kenny threatens this guy and days later Monroe gets shot. It definitely looks suspicious.
Later that same day, detectives tracked down Kenny Foster at his home in the Pinewood Park area of West Palm Beach.
We found your cell phone number on Monroe Finley's cell phone.
He says, well, my sister must have taken the phone, I loaned it to her, and the police say, look, we know that you left the message.
Context for those messages? Wasn't Kizzy that wrote them.
So Kizzy's brother, he continues to deny that he had anything to do with it. Later, he admits that he sent that threatening text to Finley.
I mean, come on, man. It's not like I did anything criminal.
So why did you text him?
Oh, why did I text those things? I mean, you should have seen my sister's face, just completely beaten and swollen.
Though Stiles' brother doesn't know why an altercation occurred, he does know that Monroe Finley threatened his sister with a gun, and when it was all over, her face was severely swollen.
He also revealed to police that his sister filed an incident report.
Well, would you submit to a DNA test?
Fine, I mean, whatever you guys need. I'll do whatever you guys need.
His willingness to submit to the test made them feel like he might be telling the truth, so they end the interview.
Back at the station, detectives pulled the incident report Kizzy Stiles filed against Monroe Finley just 2 days before the murder.
The report matches up with what Kenny Foster told them.
Why would Kizzy meet a guy in a parking lot right after he assaulted her?
Detectives hypothesized maybe Finley somehow lured her to the scene with the intent to finish what he started. After all, Kizzy said Roe was the one who shot her.
48 hours into the investigation, a ballistics report comes back on the 3 firearms officers collected the night of the shootings.
The 2 guns found at the scene were recently fired. However, the gun found at the hospital in Finley's clothing had never been fired. So now detectives are thinking, was Finley even involved? And how many shooters were there?
It looks like the investigation is back to square one. But when detectives run the serial numbers on the two guns still in question, they get a powerful new lead on the .45 caliber.
The gun belonged to Monroe Finley.
So while the gun found in Monroe's possession after the shooting wasn't fired at the scene, another firearm belonging to him was. Does that mean Monroe fired that .45 caliber gun? And if so, was he the instigator? Or was he using the gun in self-defense? Before detectives can answer these questions, they uncover another surprising detail. This one about the third gun, the Glock.
One of the guns, the Glock, had been reported stolen along with a car, and there was a suspect in that vehicle theft.
The identity of that suspect only deepens the mystery.
His name is Kevin Robinson, and he's a 16-year-old kid.
But the kicker is, he's Kizzy Styles' son. And detectives are certain this can't be a coincidence.
A hot-headed kid with a criminal record who has access to a gun and who seems to have a score to settle is a pretty strong suspect.
Detectives decide to pay a visit to Kevin Robinson at the apartment he shares with his mother.
Where were you at the night your mother and Monroe Finley got shot?
I was home, in bed.
Anyone about for you?
Yeah, my brother.
After Kevin's brother confirms the story, the cops now believe that Kevin has been telling the truth.
But if Kizzy's son Kevin Robinson didn't shoot Monroe Finley, and neither did her brother Kenny Foster, then who did? Investigators wonder if the shooter they've been looking for is Kizzy Styles herself.
What if Kevin stole the gun in question and then his mother took it from him with the intent to use it on Finley that night?
Armed with this new theory, detectives suspect there may be more to Kizzy's relationship with Monroe Finley than she originally let on.
Unfortunately, when they question Kizzy's family, they can't really elaborate much about the relationship. And Kizzy's still in a coma, so she can't talk to them.
But thankfully, there is now one woman who can.
Antoinette Jones is out of surgery, and doctors have cleared her to talk. She could be the key to unlocking this entire case.
For the past 72 hours, detectives have been investigating a triple shooting in West Palm Beach, Florida, that left 2 victims seriously wounded and another dead.
Monroe Finley was shot in the head and pronounced dead on arrival, but his girlfriend, Antoinette Jones, and another woman, Kizzy Styles, were still in serious condition.
Though Kizzy Styles was initially viewed strictly as a victim, investigators are now considering her a potential suspect.
The gun that was found at the scene was linked to her son, but he had an alibi. However, Kizzy Styles was there at the time of the shooting. Coincidence? Probably not.
Since she's still in critical condition, detectives still can't speak to her.
Thankfully for police, the other shooting victim, Antoinette Jones, is now out of surgery. Detectives are hopeful she can provide information about Kizzy Styles' relationship with Monroe Finley.
Since she was in stable condition, doctors cleared her to speak with detectives, but she was still a little out of it.
I was on so much pain meds. I had like 32-something staples in my stomach. From the minimum of my sternum all the way down.
Though Antoinette is drifting in and out of consciousness, her mind is focused on one thing, or rather, one man.
I just remember waking up in ICU with doctors saying, nobody wouldn't tell me nothing.
Eventually, detectives deliver Antoinette the heartbreaking news.
Where's my wife? I'm afraid he's passed away.
When the detective told me he didn't make it, he was like he was dead when he got there. And that was even harder, because I know he's not coming back. I'll never be able to hear his voice, or feel him hold me.
Detectives realized that this was no time to ask Antoinette sensitive questions. The interview was going to have to wait, and this was another roadblock.
Instead, detectives turned to the only person who knew Monroe Finley better than Antoinette Jones, his twin sister, Rebecca.
She immediately agrees to come down to the station, and she's ready to talk.
Finley had confided in his sister quite a bit about Kizzy Styles, who he had started seeing about a month ago.
They met at a gas station when she was with some friends, and it was after a late night of partying.
Initially, Finley said Kizzy was fun and he enjoyed hitting the clubs with her. After a while, Kizzy started to show this really possessive side. She also didn't like that Finley was with Antoinette and said she was better than her.
So, did Antoinette know of Monroe's relationship with Kizzy?
I don't know, but that relationship wasn't nothing. I mean, it was just a flame. Antoinette was the love of his life. We went ring shopping a couple weeks ago because he was going to propose to her over the Christmas holidays.
Before he died, Finley had realized that he wanted to be with Antoinette.
He was actually trying to make it clear to Kizzy that he didn't see a future with her, but Kizzy wasn't having it.
Before, a motive for this shooting had eluded detectives, but now it has all the markings of a love triangle gone horribly wrong.
Kizzy or Antoinette could have opened fire out of jealousy, or Monroe could have shot Kizzy to keep her from revealing the relationship to Antoinette. But with Monroe dead and Kizzy in a coma, Antoinette is the key to opening this case.
On December 30th, 2013, 1 week after the shooting, Antoinette Jones is released from the hospital. She agrees to come down to the station and give detectives a formal statement.
She explained how Monroe had been texting a woman earlier in the evening and that later on they were all going to go out and grab something to eat together.
It's right here. I'll be back in a minute.
All right, baby, cool.
She stayed on that back road by Oxtail. So it was dark and he didn't want her to walk by herself. So he met her halfway while I stayed parked.
And did you know this woman's name at the time?
Oh, I didn't know her name.
Is it possible that Monroe could have had a relationship with this woman on the side?
Antoinette's answer to this question leaves detectives' jaws on the floor.
Up until this point, Antoinette seemed to be this innocent, starry-eyed young woman who was deeply devoted to this man in a very traditional, textbook kind of way. But in reality, that was definitely not the case.
I'm bisexual, and I like women too.
The details that Antoinette revealed to police about her relationship with Monroe were pretty racy. It was like something out of a softcore porn novel.
They had a relationship where he was allowed to sleep with other women and he was allowed to bring them into their home for three-way tryst because Antoinette also liked women.
Any female he talked to, you know, I knew about or I knew of. So it's like we had an understanding, we had a bond.
Antoinette also informs detectives that she and Monroe were extremely forthcoming about the nature of their relationship with every young woman they invited into their bedroom.
We let a person know our rep, this is my old lady, this is my old man. And it's cool. We always let people that we deal with understand our rules and guidelines, you know?
So when Monroe Finley walked back to the car with his new young woman, the whole thing seemed perfectly normal to Antoinette Jones. But what happened next was the most bizarre, terrifying thing she had ever experienced.
That's when hell just like broke loose.
One week after the death of West Palm Beach resident Monroe Finley, detectives finally get the chance to question his girlfriend, Antoinette Jones, about the shooting that claimed his life. During the interview, Antoinette reveals details of the steamy sexual lifestyle she and Monroe led behind closed doors.
Antoinette Jones and Monroe Finley look for females to hook up with and have threesomes.
They were actually meeting with a woman the night Finley was killed to see if she could be a good partner.
Antoinette says as Finley approached the car with their latest potential sexual partner, everything seemed normal.
The smile that she had and he had was like, everything's copacetic, everything's cool.
The woman gets in the backseat of the car and sees Antoinette.
Hey, what's up?
Then, according to Antoinette, gunfire exploded from the back seat without warning.
Antoinette just heard the pops of a gun coming from the back seat.
I just seen like fire. I was driving a stick, and you know, if you don't put the car in the right gear, it cuts off. And that's when she got out the car and started shooting inside the car.
At some point, Monroe turned and fired back.
Seconds later, Monroe Finley collapses in the front seat. Within the hour, he's dead.
Though Antoinette Jones' story sounds credible, detectives still haven't ruled her out as a possible suspect.
I'll be honest, for a regular guy like me, I wouldn't be jealous. Maybe anger built up. Maybe you shot him.
What?
But Antoinette stayed firm and said, talk to anyone we know, and they'll tell you, this is how we were.
We lived our life the way we wanted to live, and we did it to the fullest. And I love every bit of it. We had the best relationship.
As for the mysterious woman from the night of the shooting, detectives have a powerful hunch it's Kizzy Styles. But without a positive ID, they can't be sure.
Yeah.
Investigators ask her to look at a photo with Kizzy Styles in it.
She's the one that shot us. That's her.
Bingo.
According to Antoinette, Kizzy is the one who shot at them.
Once Antoinette positively IDs Kizzy Styles as the shooter, investigators release her and turn their focus back to Kizzy. But interrogating Miss Styles will have to wait.
She had finally come out of a medically induced coma, but her mouth was still so swollen she really couldn't talk yet.
Detectives use the time to continue to build a case against her.
After subpoenaing Kizzy's phone records, they uncover substantial proof of her jealousy about Finley's involvement with other women. There's even a text where Kizzy refers to his wifey and says that she's better than her. Detectives can't be sure, but they think wifey must be Antoinette.
4 long weeks pass before investigators finally get the chance to question Kizzy Styles.
So despite the fact that her injuries were still pretty severe, the swelling had now gone down to the point where she was starting to communicate.
To keep the interview non-confrontational, detectives decide not to tell Kizzy Styles that she is a suspect.
Kizzy, I know you're in a lot of pain from your injury, but it would help us a lot if you can ask some questions.
Okay.
They begin with asking Kizzy Styles if she planned to have a threesome with Monroe Finley and Antoinette Jones the night of the shooting.
She denies that and says she and Finley were meeting to talk about their relationship and to see if they could work things out.
Detectives ask Kizzy if she knew Antoinette Jones. She says that she saw her from afar once when she was picking up Monroe.
Did you expect to see her that night?
No.
Was you jealous when you saw her?
No.
Even though she was his girlfriend?
Monroe told me she was just a roommate.
Of course, detectives know that this is a lie. Rebecca Finley already told them that Styles knew full well about the nature of his relationship with Antoinette Jones.
Finally, detectives reveal to Kizzy that she is under investigation for the murder of Monroe Finley.
Kizzy Styles, she continues to deny that she had anything to do with Finley's death.
If it wasn't you, can you tell us who did it?
I don't know. It must have been somebody outside of the car.
If Kizzy had said that she was acting in self-defense against Monroe Finley, or even if she had said that Antoinette attacked her, well, then police would have to investigate this in the case. However, it just seems now like she's making up stories that she's guilty and trying to get away with murder.
On March 7th, 2014, Kizzy Styles is fingerprinted before being placed under arrest. As Kizzy is carted off to county lockup, detectives notify Antoinette that Kizzy has been charged with murder.
The detective called me and told me they indicted her. He said no matter the lifestyle he have lived, or his rap record, or if he had a gun, if he didn't have a gun, it still wasn't right what that person have done, but she did.
But Kizzy Styles would soon have her day in court.
It made you ask yourself, who really killed Monroe Finley?
On March 7th, 2014, Kizzy Styles is arrested for the shooting death of Monroe Finley and the attempted murder of Monroe's wife-to-be, Antoinette Jones.
the detective, and he made it happen, and I thank him so much. I know they did that, they gonna do the rest.
5 months later, on August 11th, Kizzy Styles' murder trial gets underway in a Palm Beach County courtroom.
Finley's whole family was there. His mother, his sister, they wanted justice.
But after seeing Kizzy Styles, the family has immediate concerns about the case.
A big distraction is her face.
Her face was very much disfigured by the gunshot wound that she suffered. Her mouth has sort of a permanent twist.
The worry is that the jury will not be able to reconcile that somebody this severely injured is actually the aggressor. But prosecutors assure them that they have a strong case.
In their opening statements, prosecutors portray Kizzy Styles as a woman obsessed, whose jealousy exploded into a homicidal fury.
Because she felt rejection from Monroe Finley, that this is what caused her to go into a rage.
Prosecutors say on the night of the murder, after hours of heavy drinking, Kizzy Styles began feverishly texting Monroe Finley.
Prosecutors assert that under the influence of alcohol, she starts impulsively texting Monroe, the object of her obsession.
So Monroe texted Styles back and they agreed to meet up, but she never expected to see Antoinette there.
She was someone who just flew into a rage after she found out that they weren't going to be alone.
The combination of large amounts of alcohol, rage, jealousy, and betrayal caused her to lose her mind.
After laying out their version of the crime, the prosecution calls their star witness, Antoinette Jones, to the stand.
The first thing they ask her about is her alternative lifestyle that she had with Monroe, and that certainly got the attention of the courtroom.
After watching Antoinette Jones on the witness stand and her talking about her lifestyle with Monroe, with the threesomes, some of the jurors in the courtroom just sat spellbound by the things that she said, as if they couldn't believe that this kind of stuff was happening.
It was bittersweet because then you gotta let the world know about your lifestyle. But he wasn't there to speak for himself. I had to be that voice.
On the stand, she basically had to relive the night that her best friend and lover was taken from her.
Antoinette told a pretty heartfelt tale. She broke down a couple of times in front of the jury when she was talking about the shooting.
It was hard, so hard, but I did it though.
On August 18th, the prosecution rests. It's now the defense's turn to present their side of the story.
The defense in the case was that someone else, other than Kizzy Styles, approached the car, got into an exchange with Monroe Finley, and that's how the shooting started.
It wasn't too different from what Kizzy Styles had suggested to detectives, only they presented ballistics evidence to support that theory.
The defense said by the way Antoinette was shot in the stomach and by some of Monroe's wounds, that it would have been impossible for Kizzy sitting in the back seat to have been able to fire those shots that way and injure them that way.
But there is one critical hole in this theory. The fingerprints collected off Kizzy after her arrest are a match for those found on the Glock firearm, which makes the defense's argument of a mystery shooter seem dubious at best.
During the trial, they never provided any information on who this other person was.
Though Kizzy Styles takes the stand in her own defense, she offers zero new information about the crime.
When Kizzy took the stand, she had caught a case of amnesia and couldn't remember what happened that night.
She no longer remembers writing Rose's name down at the crime scene. She can't recall telling officers that she had gone to meet Monroe Finley to discuss the status of their relationship, or if Antoinette was even in the car.
Still, there is one moment from the shooting that remains crystal clear in Kizzy's mind.
Though she says she has no recollection of who shot her, she gives this really dramatic rendition of how she felt after she was hit.
I felt like I was dying. I felt my spirit leaving my body. And then I just saw angels just hovering over me. And it was like a battle over my soul. That's what I saw. It's like it was a battle.
It was hurtful for a person to just sit there knowing you just took someone's life and act like you're the victim or you didn't know what was going on when deep down inside you knew what you did. So I was full of a lot of anger.
When the court adjourns on August 19th, 2014, it doesn't take long for the jury to return with a verdict.
The jury found Kizzy Styles guilty of first-degree murder of Monroe Finley. They did not find her guilty of attempted first-degree murder of Antoinette Jones because they say that the shots were intended for Finley. She was sentenced to life without parole.
I did feel like justice was served, but it's bittersweet. I still can't see my fiance. My mother-in-law still cannot see her son. His twin still cannot see her brother, or speak to her brother, or hold her brother.
Kizzy Styles took Monroe Finley's life, but she couldn't extinguish the love that Monroe and Antoinette shared with one another.
Even though he's not here right now today, our love has just continued growing. You know, just like the ocean. It's there as a beginning, but there's no end. And that's the love that we have, and that's the love I still have for him.
Tosh picked her way carefully across the muddy boards, her boots sinking into the muck. A young woman in a waterproof jacket and muddy trousers was sitting on a plastic crate near the main trench, her head in her hands. She looked up as Tosh approached. She had pale skin, dark circles under her eyes, and a striking brace on her teeth that glinted in the dull light. "Hattie James?" Tosh asked, flashing her badge. "I'm D.C. McIntosh. I need to ask you a few questions about Mima Wilson." Hattie let out a shuddering breath. "Oh, God. Oh, God. I know. It's awful." She pulled her coat tighter around herself. Tosh noticed it was an older, slightly frayed wool coat, far too big for her. "Is that Mima's coat?" Tosh asked gently. Hattie nodded, tears spilling over her lower lashes. "Yes, it was pouring down yesterday. Mima saw me shivering. She was like that, kind. She gave me the jacket, said I could keep it. That was very generous of her," Tosh said, her mind working quickly. "The killer had shot a woman wearing that coat in the dark. Could it be a case of mistaken identity? Was that the last time you saw her?" "No." Hattie wiped her nose. "No, I was with her last night." Tosh straightened up. "What time?" "I left the pub in Lerwick about 9. I caught the late ferry back to Bressay. I stopped in and had a quick cup of tea with her. She just seemed like her normal self. Did she mention anyone coming to see her? Anyone she was worried about?" "No," Hattie said, her voice shaking. "But she Mima was a bit funny at the dig earlier yesterday. Funny how? Hattie pointed to the deepest trench. Sophie and I were working down there with Jackie. Jackie Holdan, Ronald's mother. She volunteers to help us sift. Mima turned up with some tea in a thermos just as Jackie found a piece of bone. What kind of bone? Hattie swallowed. I was hoping it was just a fragment of animal pottery or an animal bone. But I'm a paleoanthropology student. I know what I'm looking at. It was a pars orbital. Tosh raised an eyebrow, silently asking for translation. A piece of a human skull. Hattie clarified, her voice dropping to a whisper, right above the eye socket. And Mima saw it? Yes. She went pale. She dropped the thermos. It shattered everywhere. Hattie looked around the desolate landscape nervously. Maybe she didn't like the idea of living so close to the dead. I don't know. Tosh thanked the girl and headed back to her car to call Paris. A human skull found on the property on the same day the owner is murdered. In Shetland, there were no coincidences, only history coming back to bite you. Chapter 6, The Grieving Son. Jimmy Perez sat in the small, immaculate living room of Joseph Wilson's house in Lerwick. Joseph, Mima's son and Sandy's father, was a stark contrast to the rugged Ronald Holdan. Joseph was a neat, precise man who worked as an accountant. Right now, however, that precision was shattered. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hands tightly clasped in his lap. Sandy stood behind him, a silent, protective shadow. I'm sorry for your loss. Joseph, Jimmy said softly. It's a hell of a thing to lose your mother like that. Joseph stared at the floral pattern on the rug. She wasn't an easy woman, Jimmy. You know that. It's not an argument in an empty room to say she was stubborn. But she was my mother. She did not deserve to die like a dog in the dark. No, she didn't, Jimmy agreed. Joseph, I have to ask, where were you last night? Joseph looked up, his face flashing with sudden anger. Are you asking if I shot my own mother? I'm asking everyone where they were. Jimmy replied evenly. its procedure. Joseph deflated. I wasn't sure if you were in the station when I called. That's right. I was over at Lerwick, picking up some new nets for the boat. Missed the last ferry. Slept in the car at the harbor. Jimmy felt a prickle of unease. Ronald Holdan told me the exact same story. You both slept in your cars at the ferry terminal? Joseph hesitated. It happens. The ferry schedule is unforgiving. Did you see each other? No. It was dark, pouring rain. Jimmy turned his attention to Sandy. Sandy, you've got some leave due. I want you to stay with your dad, because he needs you. Sandy bristled, stepping forward. I want to help with the case, sir. I'm capable of more than making tea, if you'll give me a chance. I know you are. Sandy, Jimmy said, his voice firm. But it's difficult. It's a conflict of interest. Right now, your job is to get your dad to take stock of what might have been taken from the croft. Because we need to be sure it wasn't a burglary gone wrong. Jimmy stood up to leave. As he reached the door, he paused. Joseph, what's going to happen to the dig now? Mima's land. Joseph looked away. It looks like I'm going to have to close it down. Too many bad memories now. Will you put the place up for sale? Jimmy asked quietly. I know Duncan Hunter has been trying to get Mima to sell the land for years to build those luxury holiday cottages. She would never agree, Joseph whispered. Never. It was her life. But she's gone now. Jimmy pointed out gently. And the land is yours. Joseph didn't answer. He just buried his face in his hands and wept. Chapter 7. Shadows of the Shetland Bus. The Holden residence was a large, imposing stone house that spoke of generations of fishing wealth. Jimmy was shown into the drawing room by Jackie Holden, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with immaculate hair and a posture that demanded respect. Sitting by the roaring fire was Andrew Holden, Ronald's grandfather and the patriarch of the family. He was frail, his skin like translucent parchment, wrapped in a heavy tartan blanket. Jackie, Jimmy nodded. Mr. Holden, Jimmy, isn't it? Andrew rasped, his voice sounding like dry leaves. I knew your mother when she was a girl. Ah, much the same. You still keep my old man on his toes. Trying to, sir. Jimmy smiled politely. He turned to Jackie. I heard you were wetting the baby's head yesterday evening over at Ronald's. Better late than never, Jackie said briskly, offering him a seat. Have you any news yet about Mima? Not yet. I'm trying to piece the families together, just so that I understand this. You and Joseph's late wife were cousins. Am I right? Jackie nodded. Aye. But we're all connected in one way or another in Shetland, aren't we? One big happy family. Her tone suggested otherwise. Since all those incomers came to work at Sullenvo Oil Terminal, you wouldn't know who was on the islands half the time. It's not safe anymore. Nobody likes to think the threat is local, Jimmy said carefully. But 9 times out of 10, victims know their killers. Jackie, you were at Anna and Ronald's house last night. Did you notice any strangers on your way home? I didn't. Sorry. I was in after that. My father, she nodded toward the sleeping old man, can't be left alone for any length of time. Jimmy leaned forward. Hattie James, the student from the dig, said that Mima was a bit put out when you found that piece of human skull. Jackie waved a dismissive hand. It was nothing. She was quite possessive of her land. That's all. Mima never liked people digging up the past. Speaking of the past, Jimmy said, his eyes scanning the photographs on the mantelpiece. One black and white picture caught his eye. It showed 2 young men in thick woolen sweaters standing on the deck of a small, battered fishing boat. Is that your father, Jackie? And Jerry Wilson, Mima's husband? Andrew Holdan suddenly stirred, his milky eyes fixing on Jimmy. The Shetland boss, the old man wheezed. Yes, Mr. Holdan, Jimmy said respectfully, during the war. Local boats, Andrew whispered, his mind slipping back 60 years. We were used to transport saboteurs into Norway. Across the North Sea in the dead of winter, hiding from the Nazi patrols. Brave men Jimmy acknowledged. Jerry Wilson was a good man, Andrew said, his voice gaining a momentary strength. But he brought back more than just refugees. He brought back ghosts. Jackie quickly stepped in, her face tight. Don't forget your pills, Dad. I took them already. Come now. You're tired. She effectively ended the interview, ushering Jimmy toward the door. As he stepped out into the freezing air, Jimmy couldn't shake the feeling that the past was bleeding heavily into the present. A human skull, a WWII covert operation, a murdered old woman. The pieces were there, but the puzzle picture was obscured by a heavy Shetland fog. Chapter 8, Boiling Point. The rest of the day was a grueling blur of paperwork, coordinating search teams, and dealing with the press. The murder of an elderly woman on a small island was headline news across Scotland. By the time Jimmy got home, the sky was pitch black and the wind was howling a mournful tune around the eaves of his house. He found Cassie in the kitchen, sitting cross-legged on the counter, watching a pot of water boil. I'm making pasta, Jimmy announced, shrugging off his coat and rolling up his sleeves. He grabbed a box of dry spaghetti and a jar of sauce. Cassie watched him with a critical eye. Mom was right. Cooking's all about timing, and you don't have it. I have excellent timing. Jimmy lied, dumping the pasta into the water without waiting for a rolling boil. 1 minute. I don't know why you don't just let me cook. She sighed, hopping off the counter. Because I like cooking. Well, that may be, but you're rubbish at it. Pasta should be served al dente. Oh, is that right? Well, use that al fresco tone if you like, but you're eating it. Jimmy smiled, trying to inject some normalcy into the house. The shadow of Mima Wilson's death hung heavy over him. Cassie picked at the label on the pasta sauce jar. Can I go over to Maury's after dinner? Jimmy stopped stirring. The image of Mima's shattered door flashed in his mind. No. Why? Cassie whined. It's Friday. Because it's late. It's getting dark. And Jimmy paused, trying to find the right words that wouldn't terrify her. And there's an active investigation going on. You mean there's a killer on the loose? Cassie said it bluntly. Children in Shetland grew up pragmatic. In fact, until this Mima Wilson business is over, I don't want you going anywhere on your own, Jimmy said firmly. School, home, and nowhere else unless I'm with you. Cassie rolled her eyes dramatically. Dad, it's Shetland, not Chicago. I don't care, Jimmy snapped, his anxiety flaring. He took a deep breath, reining it in. Please, Cass, just for a few days. Do it for my blood pressure. Later that evening, after a dinner of distinctly al dente pasta, the doorbell rang. It was Duncan Hunter. Jimmy let him in, offering him a beer, which Duncan accepted with a nod. They sat in the living room, the atmosphere strained but civil. What's this I hear about you trying to buy Mima Wilson's place in Bressay? Jimmy asked, cutting straight to the chase. Duncan took a sip of his beer, unbothered. Word travels fast. It's true. I want to build holiday lets. The view up there is spectacular. Tourists would pay a premium. Chris Dinkins said you're turning into Shetland's answer to Donald Trump, Jimmy observed wryly. Oddly, I take that as a compliment. Duncan smirked. Anyway, no joy. Joseph wanted the deal to go through, but unfortunately, it's not his land. Mima held the deed tight. It is his land now, Jimmy pointed out, watching Duncan's reaction closely. Duncan held his hands up. Oh, Jimmy, I might be a capitalist, but I'm not a murderer. I had no idea what happened until I heard it from Craig this morning. I could do without the uphill battle here. People will think Ronald Holdan got drunk and shot Mima by accident, or that I paid someone to do it. Well, thinking's fine, Jimmy said softly, leaning forward. But I have to be sure. I know your problem. Duncan sighed, leaning back. You think it's perfect here. You want this island protected at all costs. You want it frozen in amber. But things change. Jimmy, a wee bit more sunshine, and you'd turn it into Benidorm if the money was right. I wish, Jimmy muttered. Nah, you know, I just think most people here don't want to lager their souls for a quick buck. Before the argument could escalate, Cassie walked into the room, wearing her pajamas. Night, Dad. Night, Duncan. Cassie, Duncan said, his face softening instantly into genuine affection. Come and say good night to your father. Cassie walked over and hugged Duncan. See you the weekend. Okay. Duncan smiled. After she left the room, Duncan stared at the doorway for a long time. She's another thing that'll change. She'll get bored of Shetland soon. She'll go back to the mainland for university. You'll see. Jimmy felt a tight knot in his chest. After Fran and me split up and you guys got together, I thought I'd never see Cass again. So I can't thank you enough for letting her stay with me after her mom passed. Duncan looked at Jimmy, his arrogant facade dropping for a rare moment. It wasn't completely selfless. Jimmy, you want to be here more than she does right now. You give her stability. You're her dad. I'm just her father. Jimmy nodded slowly, the shared grief over Fran momentarily bridging the massive gap between the two men. Looks like hard work. It is, Duncan agreed, finishing his beer. Keep her safe, Jimmy. Chapter 9, Flight. The next morning broke cold and clear, a rare reprieve from the relentless rain. Jimmy arrived at the station early, a takeaway coffee in hand. Tosh was already at her desk, looking stressed. Sir, we have a problem, she announced as soon as Jimmy took his coat off. I went back to the dig this morning to speak to Professor Berglund. And he's gone, packed his bags, and bolted. I spoke to the owner of the B&B where he was staying. He left at the crack of dawn. Jimmy's blood ran cold. Flight equaled guilt in his book. Did you get a description? Scandinavian looking, mid-40s, wearing a Gore-Tex waterproof. Tosh deadpanned. Thanks, B&B owner. That really narrows it down on a ferry full of fishermen and tourists. Berglund was on the ferry that just left for Aberdeen. Craig chimed in from his desk, holding a printed passenger manifest. Damn it, Jimmy swore. Craig, get McCabe to Radio Aberdeen Police. Have them intercept him at the terminal. I want him brought back here immediately. On it, Craig said, dialing his phone. Okay. Jimmy paced the room, his mind racing. We're going to have to go through the CCTV at the Lerwick Ferry Terminal for the night of the murder. I need to know if Joseph Wilson or Ronald Holdan were actually sleeping in their cars like they claimed, or if they took a private boat across the Sound. He turned to a whiteboard, grabbing a marker. Let's look at the list of people with a license to hold a shotgun on Brescia and Lerwick. He started writing rapidly. The Haldanes are on it. Andrew and Ronald. Joseph Wilson. Sandy. Sandy? Tosh asked, surprised. Farm boy. Everyone shoots rabbits here. Jimmy explained. Half the islands have a gun, and the other half are phoning me wanting to know what happened to Mima. His desk phone rang. He snatched it up. Paris. Jimmy, it's Vicky at the museum. The voice on the other end said, Vicky, please tell me you have good news. I'm still trying to get an exact carbon date on that skull fragment from the dig, she said, her voice crackling with excitement. But the coins they found in the trench with it return dates between 1465 and 1510. The skull will probably be the same era, 15th century. Right, that's historically interesting. Vicky, but it doesn't give me a motive for a modern murder. Maybe not, Vicky said hesitantly, but there's something else. I was looking through the archives about the Shetland bus. Like you asked, there's a photograph of Mima Wilson when she was young, with a Norwegian sailor. I'll be right there, Jimmy said, hanging up. He turned to Tosh. You're with me. We're going to the museum. As they were walking out, Sandy came rushing in, looking desperate. Inspector, I thought you were with my dad. He wants to know when my granny's body can be released for the funeral. Jimmy sighed, feeling a pang of sympathy. Well, Tell him he's going to have to wait for the pathologist's report from Inverness. They need to extract the pellets and confirm the angle of the shot. I did, Sandy pleaded, but he's taking it really bad. I think having the funeral might help him find some closure. My hands are tied, Sandy, Jimmy said firmly. It's a murder investigation. The body is evidence until the Crown says otherwise. Sandy looked devastated. I want to do something. Jackie's been over, bringing food, but I don't think looking after old Andrew is easy for her. And she's hovering around my dad. It's too much. Jimmy paused, sensing the undercurrents. Sandy, there are two families here, the Wilsons and the Haldanes, related, living on top of one another for generations. One of them wealthy, one of them not. Now, I can't believe that hasn't created any tension, despite what you said yesterday. Sandy looked away, his jaw tight. She's my grandmother. What? Do you think I don't want to know who killed her? I'm not protecting anyone. I'm not accusing you of that. Sandy, just keep your eyes open and stay with your dad. Jimmy walked out, leaving Sandy standing in the middle of the bullpen, looking utterly lost. Chapter 10, Ghosts in the Archive. The Shetland Museum and Archives sat on the waterfront, a beautiful modern building that housed the rugged, bloody history of the islands. Vicky, the head archivist, was waiting for them in a small back room surrounded by boxes of yellowing documents and black and white photographs. You aren't interested in the Shetland bus, Vicky teased Jimmy as he walked in. That's ironic. You weren't when you were at school. I was your teacher, remember? Jimmy smiled faintly. I was a terrible student. Vicky, what have you got for me? Vicky laid a fragile, silver gelatin photograph on the table under a magnifying lamp. It showed a group of young people laughing outside a stone building. Is that a young Mima Wilson? Jimmy leaned in. It is indeed. She was beautiful. And that's her husband, Jerry Wilson. And next to him is Andrew Haldane, of the generation. So, Mima's husband and Jackie's father worked together. Alongside Norwegian sailors, Vicky explained, pointing to a tall, strikingly handsome blonde man in the photo standing very close to Mima. Between 1940 and 45, they took spies, supplies, and large sums of money across to Norway. Sometimes they'd bring back refugees. To take the Shetland bus became a synonym for escaping the Nazis. Dangerous work, Tosh murmured, looking at the faces. So young, yet their eyes looked old. Incredibly, Vicky nodded. Anyway, not all our lads survived. Some were betrayed by a double agent. Jerry Wilson and Andrew Holdan were lucky to make it back from a botched run in 43. A double agent? Jimmy asked, his detective radar pinging. Yes, people say the Shetlanders discovered who the double agent was. A Norwegian hiding among them. And they meted out their own brutal form of justice. They killed him, Tosh asked. It's just a rumor. A ghost story, Vicky shrugged. But there's no official record of this man. She tapped the blonde man in the photo ever leaving the islands. His name was Perlunstead. Jimmy stared at the photograph. Mima Wilson was looking up at Perlunstead with an expression that was undeniably intimate. Not the look of a friend, the look of a lover. Tosh, will you wait here a minute? Jimmy said softly. Yes, sir. Tosh stepped back, sensing he needed a moment to process. Jimmy looked at Vicky. Tell her anything. Nothing seemed to shock her. Mima was a tough old bird. But if she found out that the skull dug up on her land belonged to an old lover or a murdered spy, then she'd have a reason to want the dig shut down immediately. Vicky finished the thought before they could identify the bones. Jimmy's phone buzzed aggressively in his pocket. It was Craig at the station. Boss, Craig's voice was tense. We've got a situation. A bad one. What is it? It's Ronald Holdan. He was found by the road near the Bressay ferry terminal, unconscious. He's been beaten half to death. Chapter 11, Retribution. The hospital rooms smelled of bleach and sterile gauze. Ronald Holdan lay in the bed, looking like a ruined mountain. His left eye was swollen shut, his lips split, and his arm in a cast. Jimmy stood at the foot of the bed, his face grim. Nothing on CCTV. The attack happened in a blind spot near the industrial bins. Okay. Well, you must have some idea who did this to you. Ronald. Ronald groaned, shifting painfully. It was dark, and well, I'd had a few. They didn't rob you then? Jimmy asked, noting that Ronald's expensive watch was sitting on the bedside table. I don't think so. No. No. Nothing taken, Jimmy said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. How can you be so sure it was a random attack? Why would someone beat a man of your size into a coma unless it was personal? Because people blame me. Ronald suddenly shouted, wincing as the effort tore at his ribs. The door flew open and Jackie Holdan rushed in, her face pale with fury. Get out! She screamed at Jimmy. Look at my boy. I told you not to come here and badger him. Mom, I'm fine, Ronald mumbled. Who did this? Jackie demanded, turning on Jimmy. My boy wouldn't hurt anyone, let alone his own family. Make sure people understand that. Please, everyone on the island is whispering that he shot Mima for the land. Come on, Jackie, calm down, Jimmy said, holding his hands up. You should be asking yourself who really inherits the land. Jackie spat venomously. Meaning? Well, it's not us, is it? She sneered. It's Joseph, and that useless boy of his, Sandy. Jimmy left the hospital feeling like he was wading through treacle. Every answer bred 3 new questions. Was Ronald attacked by a vigilante who thought he killed Mima? Or was he attacked by the real killer to keep him quiet? He got back into his car and drove toward the station. He needed to talk to Professor Berglund. The Aberdeen police had apprehended him at the ferry terminal and were holding him for questioning. When Jimmy walked into the Lerwick interview room, Professor Paul Berglund looked less like an esteemed academic and more like a cornered rat. He was sweating in his Gore-Tex jacket. You're a hard man to track down, Professor, Jimmy said, pulling out a chair and sitting opposite him. I was just on my way to see you on Bresse this morning when I found out you'd bolted. I didn't bolt, Berglund said defensively, his accent slightly clipped. I had a funding meeting. I had to be there in Aberdeen. The university is threatening to pull the plug on the dig. Sorry. Am I to believe that your funding is more important than a murder investigation on your doorstep? Am I a suspect? Berglund countered, his eyes darting to the mirror. Well, according to your student, Hattie James, this dig was quite important to you. It was your last chance to make a major discovery, and Mima could have closed it down at any moment. Hattie tends to blow things out of proportion, Berglund scoffed, waving a hand. She's an emotional girl, highly strung. You know her well, then? Jimmy asked smoothly. Berglund stiffened. No, I've just gleaned the fact that she's quite neurotic from working with her. I didn't get that impression, Jimmy said, leaning in. It seems we've taken an instant dislike to each other. Professor, that's unfortunate. Not for me, Berglund snapped. I mean, you plan to leave Shetland, but I can hold you here as a material witness for as long as I need to. You have nothing on me, Berglund sneered. We know that Mima Wilson was killed around 11 p.m., Jimmy said, laying out the facts like cards on a table. And we know that you had a lot riding on that dig. You stood to get major funding if you got results. So, is it possible that Mima was going to shut you down after she discovered that human skull? Or that she was going to sell the land to Duncan Hunter? I don't know anything about selling land, Berglund said, looking genuinely panicked. Is that a strong enough motive to kill her? Jimmy pressed. Berglund slammed his hands on the table. I didn't kill the old woman. I was in my B&B all night. Jimmy let him sweat for a moment. Then he pulled out the photograph of Mima and Perlunsted. Did you find anything else in that trench besides a skull? Maybe a set of dog tags. A personal item belonging to a Norwegian sailor? Berglund stared at the photo his face draining of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Before Jimmy could press the advantage, the interview room door opened. It was Tosh. She looked terrified. "Sir," she whispered urgently, "you need to come out here. Now." Chapter 12. The Missing Girl. Jimmy bolted out of the interview room. "What is it?" Tosh handed him his mobile phone. "It's a voicemail. It just came through on the station's main line. Forwarded for you." Jimmy pressed play and held it to his ear. "Jimmy Perez. Hi, it's Hattie James." The girl's voice was breathless, panicked. The sound of howling wind roared in the background. "I need to speak to you. I found something. Not in the trench. In the professor's tent. Oh God, he's coming back." A scuffling sound. A sharp intake of breath. "Hattie." The voice on the tape wasn't Jimmy's. It was a man's voice. Cold. Angry. "Shit. Hattie. Hi. It's Hattie. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you." Hattie's voice babbled, trying to cover her tracks, pretending to record a voicemail greeting. Then the line went dead. Jimmy stared at the phone, traced the signal. Where did this come from? The mast on Bresse, Tosh said grimly. "She's up at the dig." "Get a tactical team," Jimmy barked, sprinting for the door. "Call the Coast Guard section manager. Let Willie know we might need a search and rescue grid over the Bresse Moors. I want every available officer on that ferry." "Yes, sir," Tosh yelled, already running for the radios. Jimmy threw his car into gear, his heart hammering against his ribs. The sky over Shetland was darkening prematurely, pregnant with a massive storm rolling in from the Atlantic. He dialed Hattie's number over and over as he sped toward the terminal. It went straight to voicemail every time. "Hattie, it's Jimmy Perez." He left a message, his voice tight with controlled panic. "We've just been up at the bog end. Give us the phone. Quick." He was talking to himself, cursing the island's terrible reception. When he reached the Bresse Croft, the wind was at gale force. The blue police tape was ripped and whipping wildly in the air. "Check the house!" Jimmy yelled to Craig, who had arrived right behind him. "I'll head up to the dig and see if she's there." Jimmy grabbed a heavy flashlight from his trunk and ran up the muddy hill toward the archaeological site. The tarpaulins were tearing loose, snapping like gunshots in the wind. "Hattie!" he roared, his voice instantly swallowed by the storm. "Hattie!" He reached the main encampment. The professor's tent was unzipped, the flap blowing wildly. Jimmy drew his baton, stepping carefully inside. The tent had been ransacked. Papers were everywhere. A laptop lay smashed on the floor. "Hattie," he called out softly. He swept the flashlight beam across the mud. He saw a set of footprints leading away from the tent, deeper into the peat bogs. Small boots. Someone running. Jimmy followed them. The rain was lashing down now, a freezing, blinding sheet of water that soaked him to the bone in seconds. He slipped in the mud, catching himself on a jagged rock, tearing his gloves. He pushed on, fighting the terrain. The bogs were treacherous, full of hidden sinkholes and deep trenches dug for peat. "Hattie!" Then the flashlight beam caught something. A flash of white against the dark earth. Jimmy ran toward it, his lungs burning. It was a hand. Hattie James lay at the bottom of a shallow peat cutting. She was staring up at the stormy sky, her eyes wide, the rain washing over her pale face. The brace on her teeth caught the light of Jimmy's flashlight. There was a massive, dark stain spreading across the front of Mima Wilson's oversized wool coat. Jimmy scrambled down into the ditch, falling to his knees in the mud. He pressed his fingers against her neck. Cold, nothing. "Oh, good God," Jimmy whispered, the horror of it paralyzing him for a fraction of a second. He grabbed his radio, pressing the transmit button with a shaking, blood-stained thumb. "Inspector, can you hear? Hello? Can you hear me?" The radio crackled with static, the signal blocked by the hills and the storm. "Hello? Inspector, are you there?" He was completely alone with the dead girl. He looked down at her. Protruding from her chest, Right in the center of the dark stain was a heavy, ornate hunting knife. Jimmy's mind flashed back to the interview room. Professor Berglund, the photograph, the missing documents. He had to get a signal. He had to call this in. He scrambled out of the ditch, running toward the highest ridge. His phone finally caught a bar of signal. It began to ring. A missed call. He dialed it back. Hello. A woman's voice answered. She sounded exhausted. Hello. When Jimmy asked, panting heavily. Sorry, who's this? This is Detective Perez from the Shetland Constabulary. There was a long, terrifying pause on the other end. There's no cause for concern, is there? Mrs. James, I just wondered if you'd heard from. Jimmy choked on the lie. He couldn't do it over the phone. Not while he was covered in her daughter's blood. She's not in any trouble, is she? When asked, her voice rising in panic. No. Is she? Is she likely to hide herself away if she's upset about something? Why? Don't worry, Mrs. James. If she does get in contact with you, can you please let me know? Jimmy managed to say, his voice breaking. There you are. He hung up, the cruelty of the job crushing him. I just wanted to say that I thought your daughter was lovely, and I wish there were more people like her. You should be very proud of her. The words he should have said echoed mockingly in his head. Jimmy stood on the ridge, the storm raging around him. He had two unsolved murders on his hands. An old woman shot in her home, and a young student stabbed in the mud. And a whole island of suspects who were all protecting their own blood. He stared out at the black, churning sea, the lights of Lerwick twinkling mockingly in the distance. He felt a cold resolve harden in his chest. He was going to tear this island apart until he found the monster hiding in the dark. And he was going to start with Professor Paul Berglund. He keyed his radio again, finally catching a burst of static-filled reception. Control. This is Perez. I need a forensics team at the Bresse dig. Now, we have a 187. I repeat, a homicide. He looked back down into the ditch. the rain washing away the evidence, washing away the girl. Where the hell have you been? Jimmy muttered to the wind, thinking of the killer. You knew I didn't want you going out on your own, but yet you did it anyway. He knew what the professor would say. She used my knife to kill herself. I didn't say she killed herself, Professor. Jimmy whispered into the storm. But she found something. The list of the Norwegian agents lost during the Shetland bus operation. Per Lundstedt. Mima had known. Hattie had found out. You know that if it does turn out that I'm a threat to reveal your affair, it gives you a motive for murder. Jimmy spoke to the phantom of the killer. She's going to regret that. And so is the bastard she's been shagging. Ronald had nothing to do with it. Jimmy knew that now. This was something much older, much darker. And it was only just beginning. End of part 1. The Artisan of Ink. A novel based on the case of Albert Talton. Prologue. The Crypt of Bogus Dreams. The specimen vault in Washington, D.C. was a room that smelled of cold metal and old, dishonest paper. It was a high-security purgatory for the ghosts of failed ambitions. The air was kept at a precise temperature, as if to preserve the lies within for eternity. Kelly Harris, a forensic specialist with eyes that could detect a microscopic deviation in a serif, walked past rows of filing cabinets. To most, this was a collection of trash. To the Secret Service, it was a library of human psychology. Each bill was a story of a man who thought he was smarter than the system. A tangible record of the moment greed overtook common sense. She stopped at a drawer labeled with a specific code. Inside lay the H2 H38 series. Look at the texture, she whispered to her colleague. Most digital forgers give up at the tactile level. They think the eye is easily fooled. And it is. But the hand has a memory of its own. But this guy, he understood that money isn't just about what you see. It's about what you feel. He wasn't just printing, he was engineering a lie that could breathe. On the wall of the vault, a quote from 1865 reminded them of their origin, a time when half of the nation's currency was fake and the economy was on the verge of a cardiac arrest. The war hadn't ended. It had just moved from massive printing presses to quiet, suburban inkjet nozzles. Chapter 1, The Epiphany of Greece. Lawndale, California 2004. The air in the body shop was thick with the scent of Bondo, burnt rubber, and the metallic tang of spray paint. Albert Talton wiped a streak of grease from his forehead, his mind anywhere but on the dented fender of the Toyota Camry in front of him. He was 41. And the rhythmic sound of a pneumatic sander was the soundtrack to a life he felt was beneath him. Albert felt the weight of every year he'd spent behind bars. He had the hands of a craftsman and the brain of an electrical engineer, a degree he'd walked away from years ago because the classroom felt like a cage. He had always been a hustler, a term that carried a certain prestige in the streets of Inglewood, where he grew up. In Inglewood, you were either the shark or the bait. But the dirt he'd done in the past bank fraud, forged checks had only led him to a small bunk and a high wall. He was trying to go straight, or at least he was trying to look like he was. The parole board liked steady jobs, even if those jobs paid in peanuts compared to the rush of a successful scam. His boss, a man named Miller with a permanent scowl and a pack of Marlboros in his pocket, walked over to the workbench. He held a $100 bill between his thumb and forefinger as if it were a piece of rotting fish. "Look at this, Al," Miller spat. "Some kid just tried to pay for a detailing job with this garbage. I didn't catch it until he was halfway down the block. Feel that? It feels like a goddamn greeting card." Albert took the bill. He felt it first. Too smooth, too stiff. He held it up to the flickering fluorescent